Hello, everybody. I'm new to doing these Zoom presentations, so please forgive me if I mess up anywhere. There's lots of cool bits of tech that I've discovered while getting ready for this, like this laser pointer, which I just turned on. So I'll start. As Ash said, I'm from Graham Stockfield from Turtles Australia. I'm the president. And we've been going for 7 odd years now, but we've actually been doing conservation work a bit longer than that. We mainly do our field work up around the Gunbower Island area, which if you haven't been up there, it's a beautiful part of Victoria. And most of the background shots you'll see are from Gunbower Island. So I'll get moving. So turtles have been around for a very long time. The Anutosaurus africanus, I'm sure that's pronounced incorrectly, is the earliest known turtle that lived about 260 million years ago. It doesn't look much like a turtle to me, but I'm sure the scientists that work these things out know what they're doing. But I guess this part looks like it's forming into a sort of a turtley shell shape. But yeah, so this turtle is this animal is the oldest known turtle, and that's about 260 million years ago. And to give you an idea of how long ago that is, the 2 major extinction events are on the timeline about here. That turtle falls in just before the gigantic extinction. Really, it's just a really long time ago. So they've survived this long, and hopefully they'll survive a bit longer. But there's a lot of threats against many different species of turtles all around the world. Anyway, one of the main questions, or first questions we always get asked, are they turtles or tortoises? Now, if you grow up in Victoria or South Australia, you probably called them tortoises. If you grew up in my vintage anyway, so it's in the 60s and 70s. They were called tortoises for many years, but they are turtles, and the easiest way to differentiate a turtle from a tortoise is turtles have got webbed feet or flippers, and they love water. And tortoises have got stumpy round feet and love the land. The giant tortoises on Galapagos Island are a perfect example of a tortoise. Yeah, they got there by falling into the water somewhere and floating across and ending up on the islands, but they don't generally live in the water, they live on the land. There's tortoises that live in very wet rainforests and in very dry deserts. They're highly adaptable, but we don't have any in Australia. Turtles, on the other hand, they have to have water as part of their life cycle. They breed, they eat in the water. I'm sure there's examples that eat out of the water, but generally they eat in the water. There's salt water, fresh water. It's all, yeah, it doesn't really matter. They're all turtles in Australia. So we'll go through some of the basic anatomy. This is a shell of a broadshell turtle that I found up at Gunbower. It's now in the Museum of Victoria. It was used in a some scientific research into details of the structure of the shell, which was all a little bit above my level of comprehension. But we'll go through the basic anatomy, which is, yeah, obviously the whole shell is the shell, but the top of the shell is the carapace. The bit that you see is like the skin of the shell are scutes. So there's this one has lost most of its scutes, but there's still some, and they follow these deep lines. That each one of those is a scute. The actual skeleton, if you see these jagged lines, they follow the line of what would have been the ribs before they all melded into the shell. So the scutes have all got individual names. So this one here is the nuchal. The ones across the back are the vertebral. The ones around the sides of the shell are the costals, and the ones around the edges are the marginal. And then the bottom of the shell is the plastron, and these pieces on each side that connect the top to the bottom of the bridge. And here's a cross section of the shell. So you can see in the center there, that's the spinal column. And these two bony bits between the top and bottom of the hips. So when a turtle gets hit by a car, one of the injuries that, yeah, quite often the shells are cracked, but that's not too bad. They can heal quite well from that. But if they get hit at the back and the hips break, which you can imagine that a car doing that would do, then they're in a lot of strife. That's basically a injury that's beyond repair. So yeah, if you find a turtle on the road that's been hit by a car and it's badly injured at the rear end, it's probably best to take it to a vet who'll euthanize it. But if it's got injuries on the side, it's not so bad. It's probably still worth a trip to the vet, but depending on the vet, that is what action will be taken. But I'm getting off topic a little bit, so I'll just keep moving on. So sexing turtles is in some species quite easy. So it's generally the easiest way is by looking at the tail. So if you see this top turtle is another broadshell turtle. That's the tip of the female's tail there, and the bulk of the tail is across there, and it just curves around that little bit. So a very small tail, whereas the male, a broadshell turtle, the tail is much more substantial. As far as I know, every turtle is the same. The males have a longer tail than the female. But eastern longnecks, which are the ones we're most likely to come across in Victoria, they do a really good job of pulling their tails right inside the shell and making it extremely hard to see whether they've got a long tail or a short tail or any tail at all. But on most species, you can quickly look at the tail and know whether it's a male or female. So freshwater turtles in Australia. Australia-wide, there are about 30 recognised species of freshwater turtles. There's still more to be identified in remote and populated areas, but for instance, the Mary River turtle, which was widely known in the pet trade throughout the 70s and 80s, was only identified in the wild in the 1980s up around the Gympie area in Queensland. It was quite a highly populated area, but it managed to avoid the scientists for nearly 200 years. And if you can imagine, there's a lot of remote areas up in West Australia and Northern Territories. There's still species up there to be found. But in Victoria, we have 3 recognised species, and this is unlikely to change. So identification of Victoria's turtles. We've got two species of long-necked turtle, the broad-shell turtle, and it's Calodina expansa, the eastern snake-necked turtle, or eastern long-necked turtle, Calodina longicollis, and one species of short-necked turtle, the Murray River turtle, Emydura macquarieii. The broad-shell turtle, that's Australia's biggest long-necked turtle. If you were simply going on the measurements from tip to tail, it would probably be our largest turtle, but generally we go by measurements of the shell, from the back of the shell to the front of the shell, to give their size, which there are other turtles that are slightly bigger than a broad-shell turtle. So they're our largest long-necked turtle. They're up to 48 centimetres, and that's from there to there. They have a large flat head. You can see this structure there, that's their jawbone that allows them to open their mouth. It sort of hinges way back here. They can open their mouth very wide. The eyes are close together on the front of the head, and the head and neck are about 85% of the carapace length. And the plastron is a creamish colour with no markings, and is narrow when compared to the eastern snake-necked turtle. So if you're looking at the bottom of the turtle, you can see this is quite narrow compared to the full width of the shell. And here's an eastern snake-necked turtle, or eastern long-necked turtle. You can see the carapace, the plastron there is quite wide compared to the carapace. And there's another thing, these black lines on an eastern long-neck are a really good distinguishing feature, whereas there's none on the broad-shell turtle. And if you put a broad-shell turtle upside down, it'll do this. We call it they go starfish. They just stick all their arms and legs out, sometimes their head as well. The eastern longnecks, they don't stick their legs out. They pull them in really tight. Once they're domesticated, they'll wiggle and squirm around and have their arms and legs, or their legs and neck out. But a wild turtle will do this every time. And the other eastern longnecks, they smell really bad. Everybody's probably smelt a turtle at some stage, and if you have, it was probably an eastern longneck. And that smell comes from their musk. Now, you can just see on this broadshell turtle, the yellow colouring around there and there. That's the liquid coming from the musk glands. So most turtles have got musk glands and will excrete a liquid, but the broadshell turtle, whilst I wouldn't say it's a pleasant smell, I like it because I like broadshell turtles, and we usually smell it when we're finding a nest full of hatchlings. It's a good smell, and you go, oh, there's live turtles in there. Whereas the eastern longneck, I don't think anybody could describe it as a pleasant smell under any circumstances. They just stink. And it comes from the same area, in that the front of the rear legs. And you can actually see it on the turtles. It's just a tiny little line on their body, on the skin of the turtle around there, which is the gland. Anyway, we'll move on. So the next turtle is the eastern snake-neck turtle. I've got eastern snake-neck turtle here because that's the official name in the Victorian regulations, but most people call them eastern longnecks, or stinky turtles, or just longnecks. But yeah, they have a shell up to 26 centimetres in length. Now, that's the official length. They do get a little bit bigger than that occasionally, but it's pretty rare. So that's a pretty good general size for a large eastern longneck. They got a much smaller head, and they got bumpy skin on their neck. You can see there. Where, if you're trying to tell it apart from a broadshell turtle, the broadshell is more a leathery type of smooth skin. The head and neck are only about 60% of the carapace length, and the plastron is cream to black with the black outline. So occasionally you'll get ones that are completely black on the bottom, and I've seen a photo of one that was completely the bony colour on the bottom. It's just variations. But generally, this is pretty much a standard turtle, if you like. And you'll see the two different colours there. This is unshed. That's been in the wild, in just out in a swamp somewhere, but it's getting ready to shed its skin effectively, the outer layer of the scutes, which is how they grow. And you can see these two have shed off, and that's nice and clean. So that's the fresh paint, if you like. And you'll quite often see eastern longnecks covered in algae and all green, and people think, oh, there's something wrong, they're terribly sick. No, they just sit around on the bottom of swamps and the algae grows on them. And usually, once a year or maybe twice a year, depending on how much food they're getting, they'll shed the outer layer, and they'll go from being green and slimy and everything to one like this with a beautiful clean shell. It's just part of their life cycle. Another way to distinguish them, they, as I've said, they emit a very strong and offensive odour. So the third species we have is the Murray River turtle, and they're quite different to look at. I'll run through the slides rather than get distracted. They're up to 34 centimetres in length, so that's from there to there. The head and neck are only about 25% of the carapace length. They have a small head with a pointy nose and a sharp beak, so you can see the mouth is quite a different shape. It's more like a parrot beak. And if an eastern longneck or a broadshell turtle bites you at any time, quite often if I'm feeding them and put my hand in the tank, they'll bite me. It's a bit of a shock, but I sort of compare it to, you get flicked with your finger. You feel it, but it's nothing too dramatic. You get a bit of a fright because they're striking out with their neck and they take you by surprise, but it doesn't really hurt. These guys, if they bite you, it hurts. I've been bit plenty of times and it hurts. Only once have they drawn blood, and that and broken the skin. That was, I got bitten on the wrist by a turtle that had been looked after by a vet for quite some time, been nursed back to health, and I was taking it back to release it into the wild, and the thanks I got was a severe bite on the wrist. But it was my bad handling of the turtle that put my hand in the wrong spot. But yeah, they can be a bit bitey. But with all turtles, I'm much more worried about their claws than their mouths. The mouths won't really do any damage, whereas the claws can be quite savage. Anyway, back to the description. These turtles have got a yellow eye, and it's on the side of their head rather than towards the front. And they've got this yellow stripe running down the back of the mouth. And the plastron is narrow and light tan in colour, so that's what the bottom of a Murray River turtle looks like. And they're generally, I'd have to say 99.9% of the ones we see in the wild are beautiful and clean. They're a highly active turtle. They're always moving around, and I think we've caught one or two at various times that have got algae growing on them, but generally there's shiny, clean turtle. They spend a lot of time basking and, like I say, a lot of time moving about. We'll go on to reproduction and nesting. So turtles, most people be aware, but in case you're not, they lay eggs. And obviously, I just thought of something, so I'll go, obviously they lay eggs on the ground, apart from one species up in the Northern Territory, but we'll get into that in a sec if you're interested. So this is one of the sites up at Gunbower. It's called Cockatoo Lagoon. This is about 200 acres of farmland, and around the edges there's still all the vegetation, and there's two big sandhills, one here and another one over here. There's a bit of a gully in between, and the turtles just love these sandhills for nesting on. Each of these dots represents a nest, and most of them have been predated, and that's how we've got to record them. So foxes take them, and there is a lot more nests that we've recorded over the years that show up in this image, but it gives you a little bit of an idea. So as you can see, there's a lot of nests right along this edge here, and these ones right here will tend to be the Murray River turtles, because they come out of the water, they walk through the trees, and it seems that once they can sort of look up and see the sky, whether it's the stars or just the sky, they'll stop and nest. Doesn't mean that these ones aren't Murray River turtles, but generally these ones down the bottom are the Murrays, and the ones that are further up the hill are the broadshell turtles. They tend to walk a lot further. So I guarantee you that these ones up here, they're broadshell turtles. And again, it doesn't mean that the ones down closer to the water aren't broadshell turtles, but as a general rule, close to the water are the Murrays, up on the hill further away are the broadshell turtles, and the eastern longnecks, we don't get enough nests to have worked out where they nest up in this area. We've got some places, but they seem to be all over the place. There's no real pattern to them, except that usually if we find one eastern longneck nest, we'll find a group of them together. But I'll move on. So these are castings of their nests. So quite often when turtles dig a nest, they will dig the complete nest, and then for whatever reason not lay eggs and walk away. Sometimes we can tell, like, if it's been very wet, they'll get down deep and there'll be water in the bottom, and they won't like that. Other times I've seen turtles nesting and they get harassed by crows or just people coming past, and that will be enough to disturb them, and they'll wander off. But generally we don't really know why they do it. We do know, like for the broadshell turtles, in March, when we usually go up to Gunbower to look for the nests, we'll find a lot more test nests in March than when we go back in April. When we go in April, they seem to be more serious about nesting. So it may be in March they're triggered to nest by the weather, but they're not actually ready to lay the eggs. Also, we think that in March we get less numbers of eggs. When we find raided nests, you'll only find a few eggs scattered around them, whereas in April, if you find a nest that's been raided by a fox, you'll find 15, 20 eggs scattered around, which tends to the same proposition that maybe in March they're not as ready to nest as they are later on. So the smallest nest goes with the smallest turtle. So that's the long-necked turtle. The medium-sized one goes with the medium-sized turtle, the Macquarie turtle. And the largest nest goes with the broadshell turtle, the largest turtle. This is the only casting we've got of an eastern long-necked nest. And this one, we found what we thought was a nest, and we were going to protect it. So just to make, nests look like a lot of other things. Quite often we'll find what we think is a nest and have a bit of a scratch around, and it turns out it's an ant hole, or it's somewhere where a cow's taken a leak in a paddock, or there's just a lot of things that look like turtle nests. So we usually carry a trowels with us, and we'll just have a bit of a scratch around. And this one we were pretty convinced it was a long neck nest. So we thought we'd see whether there were any eggs and whether it was a nest. And we flipped the plug out. So the turtle had dug the nest, made the plug to go in the bottom, which I'll get to in a minute, the plugs. But the nest was completely empty. It hadn't hatched. There were no empty egg shells or anything. There were no full egg shells. There was nothing. It was just an empty nest. So it was very, very bizarre. Anyway, I'll move on. So this is a broadshell turtle nest in situ in the ground. So you can see that's 200 mil from sort of the ground level to the bottom. So this is on a sand hill, so it's beautiful soil to dig in. So we thought we'd take the opportunity once we'd made the casting to take a photo to show how they sit in the ground. So the turtle, its tail, or rear of the turtle would have been here, and the head and neck out this way in front of it. And they reach down with their hind legs and scoop the dirt out and dump it up on the ground behind them. So you'll get these two piles of dirt at the rear. You'll get a couple of footprints at the front where their front legs are resting on the ground. Generally, if depending on the soil, whether it's sort of taking the tracks well or not. But yeah, but anyway, that's what the nest looks like in situ. So this is just a little bit of a video of turtle nesting in my back garden. Now I've got to get rid of this pointer to play it. I think. Okay. So, apologies for the noise on this one, but you can see that the soil that's mounted up at the back where the turtles dug it out. Now that soil was quite hard. All that moisture that softened the soil has come from the turtle carrying it up in its body. They have a separate bladder from their bladder, if you like, which they'll just hold water in. This turtle is actually in the process of laying eggs, so you can just see an egg dropping in there. Hopefully it's showing up all right on your screens. And then it fiddles it around and positions it in the nest. And if I remember rightly, generally what they'll do is then swap legs and lay another egg once it's positioned. So quite often when we're out looking for turtle nests, when they're breeding, we find a turtle wandering around. You can look at the rear of the turtle, and if it's all muddy, it's a pretty good indication that it's already nested. Whereas if they're clean, they're quite often still on their way to nesting. And it's still mucking around positioning that egg. You can see the eggs down the bottom of the nest. Change its legs, and then we'll lay another one. Sometimes they're quicker than others. As you could hear that noise, and that was the eggs clicking together. So they're quite hard eggs, if you like. They're hard shelled. So I'll just go on to the next slide. So once the turtle has finished the nest, the next thing is to seal it up. So if you, I need to put the pointer, and all the things I was pointing at in that last video you wouldn't have seen because I didn't have the pointer going. You can see the turtles dragging the soil and stuff forward onto the top of the nest, or trying to, and then it raises and lowers its shell and tamps the top of the nest down. And turtles all over the world all go through the same tamping process. They sort of make a mud pie and seal up the top of the nest. And I've had farmers out in paddocks at night find turtle nests simply because they could hear the turtle knocking the around on the ground when it was doing this tamping process. They could hear it was making so much noise that they could hear it. Anyway, I'll move on to the next slide. So, as I say, the turtles lay hard shell eggs. So these are broad shell eggs. So these particular ones were taken from a turtle that was on the road and was hit, and unfortunately it was killed. We had a vet nurse with us out in the field, and she wasn't at all squeamish about removing the eggs from the turtle. I don't think I could have done it. I'm a bit of a sook when it comes to things like that, but she did a great job. And this is about half of the eggs. We divided them into two lots. I think these are the good ones that were undented or unmarked in any way. So we put all those into one nest, and the other half were put into another nest. And we should know whether they've hatched or not by now, but because of COVID, we weren't able to go up and check the nest out in March this year. So I can't wait to get up there and see whether they were successful or not. Because like I say, we made two nests as close to real nests as we could. But yeah, that you can see that's what the eggs look like. The different species have slightly different size, shape eggs. Obviously, the broad-shell turtles are the biggest, and the eastern longnecks are the smallest, and the Murrays are somewhere in between. The eastern longnecks are a bit more tubular than the broad-shells, which are pretty much egg-shaped. Anyway, so as I said, the turtles make these plugs that go in the top of the nest. So you can see they've dragged all the mud forward and all the sort of the grass and stuff around that's been laying in the area. And once they've made these plugs, the nests are almost impossible to see. They're very, very well disguised. But unfortunately, foxes, they don't go by vision, they go by smell, and they can smell the nests out very easily, and they'll just flip these plugs out, which is what's happened to these couple, and then get into the nest and eat all the eggs. But that doesn't always happen. So again, up at Gumbower, there's another site where we were able to fence off one. There's two sandhills, and we were able to fence one off so the foxes couldn't get in, and the turtles could. And this is a nest we found in that area. So this nest is actually quite easy to see. It's surprising, but that little hole there is where the hatchlings came out. Those were the Murray River turtle nest. You can see the eggs there. So I can't claim responsibility for spotting this. My mate Dylan, I don't know whether he's on tonight or not, but he spotted it, and as it had hatched, we opened the nest up and lifted that plug virtually came out in one piece. As you can see, the nest, the hole is virtually exactly the same as when the turtles finished nesting. All these broken eggs were down the bottom. They're the ones that have hatched. There was these couple of good ones. I think there's 3 or 4 that were still there. They had failed to hatch, but most of the eggs had hatched, and we were quite chuffed, because apart from the fact that we very rarely find a nest like this with the turtles have come out of, this is exactly what we were trying to achieve by fencing off the sandhill, that the turtles could get on with doing their nesting and everything without any human intervention, to make it possible for the nests to get through the season. So the hatchling turtles. So this is eastern longneck, a Murray River turtle, and a broadshell turtle. All very cute. Nothing cuter than a baby turtle. It's quite easy to tell the broadshell turtle and the eastern longneck turtles apart. The eastern longnecks start with these bright orange colours on the bottom. They're a lot smaller than the broadshell turtles, but if somebody's on the phone to us and says, "Oh, I found a baby turtle," my first question is, "It's got a long neck?" And they go, "Oh, yeah, it's pretty long." And then they say, if you turn it upside down, has it got orange on the bottom, or just plain in colour? And usually they'll say it's got orange, and that's it. So you can just say straight away it's an eastern longneck. But if they say it's plain, it's and it's got a long neck, it's a broadshell. The Murray River turtles are pretty much like the broadshells underneath, but you can see on these 2 turtles there's a sort of a crease across there and across there. When the turtles are in the egg, they're folded along that line, and the Murray River turtles, they fold along the length, so they sort of come out. They're a bit like a taco or something that is folded over, whereas the eastern longnecks and the broadshells are folded crosswise. They straighten out very quickly once they're out of the shell, but they're all very soft. The shells and everything when they're born, perfectly bite-sized for birds and other creatures, sadly, but that's natural predation. So you can see there the difference in the size of the broadshell and the eastern longneck. The broadshell turtles usually weigh between 11 and 14 grams. Eastern longnecks haven't had really enough to weigh, but I'd say they'd be about 6 grams. Hit the underside of the turtles again. You can see these areas here. That's where the egg yolk was attached to the turtle, and you can basically tell, get a bit of an idea how long it is since they've hatched out of the egg by the state of that wound. And these have hatched reasonably recently. The egg yolk is fully absorbed, but it hasn't sealed over. The broadshell turtles, particularly, that we see, have quite often been hatched out, but still in the nest for quite some time, and this will be completely sealed up and almost disappeared. as babies before they come out of the nest. And this is a slide I made up tonight, so please forgive me if there's any mistakes in it, but that basically goes through the nesting process. So broadshell turtles, they normally nest in March and April and some into the beginning of May. Big emphasis on the normally. Sometimes they nest in October and November. I can't even say it. Hatchlings normally, so there's a typo, emerge from the nests in April the following year. Again, that's normally. However, there are records of nests that have live hatchlings in them from over 500 days to 700 days. Then there's a couple of records of around the 660 days as well. So that's, we're getting on for 2 years. So they've gone in March, April, gone through winter, summer, and another winter, and the two nests that are around the 600 plus days, they were up at Patho, which is near Gunbower. And they were recorded, I think, in the early 80s or late 70s, and they were nests that are assumed to be failed, and they were opened up and there were live hatchlings in there. The 500 days is the first nest we ever protected after it hadn't hatched out after a summer, a winter, a summer, another winter. We assumed it had failed, so we opened it up and there were live hatchlings in there. And the 700 days, again, was the same thing. It had gone through 2 summers and was well into its second, two winters, and was well into its second summer when we decided to open it to see whether it was a failure. And it was mostly a failure, but there were 2 or 3 live hatchlings still in the nest. There are quite a few eggs that had failed, and there were a couple of eggs that had hatched and there were dead hatchlings in there. But it's still quite incredible that after that long they could be in the ground. Murray River turtles, they're pretty normal. So they nest right now in early November. In fact, I should be up at Gunbower, but because we can't leave Melbourne, I'm in Melbourne. The turtles were nesting last week. They had some rain came through, and usually I'm up there for Cup Day, and there's rain. The rain comes through, and the turtles come out and nest. They're quite predictable. In fact, at Cockatoo Lagoon, which was that very first slide I showed of the area, it had a whole heap of turtles nesting there last week. Again, I was here, but some of the locals had spotted them. They went out the very next day to try and protect the nests, and they managed to protect 1 nest, but they found 15 that the foxes had got just overnight at one site. So that would have been happening all over the area. So they all normally nest early November, but later in the year is not unknown or uncommon. And the hatchlings usually emerge at around about 80 days after being laid. I say emerge because emerging from the nest is quite different to when they hatch. I won't say we don't know, because there might be scientists that do know. But yeah, the time that they hatch and the time they emerge can be quite different. And eastern longnecks, they normally start nesting about now. In fact, I know that they were, because I've seen the photos of a couple that have been nesting, and normally nest November, December, but much later in the summer is not unknown. We know of one that nested on Australia Day a couple of years ago, and their hatchlings normally emerge after 100 to 150 days. However, there are many reports of hatch. So basically, they nest in the summer and the hatchlings emerge in the summer. That's what that says. However, there are many reports of hatchling eastern longnecks being found in October and November. Now, that's way too early for them to have been laid, incubate, and emerge from the nest. They must have been laid the previous summer and overwintered in the nest. And there's the first record that was officially recorded. There was a nest that some scientists came across and they monitored, and they got the record. They got the first record of them, of the eastern longnecks overwintering. But I'm quite often, in communication with people up around Gunbower area, and the farmers will say, "Oh, we dug up a turtle nest," and it'll turn out it's an eastern longneck nest, and they've dug it up in the middle of winter, so that they've found the hatchlings in there. They want to know what to do with them, so we give them advice. But so it seems that it's quite common for them to overwinter, and we think sometimes the eastern longnecks will actually lay 2 clutches of eggs in a season. So their natural diet, the long-necked ambush predators, and they eat insects, fish, shabbies, prawns, and they'll take animal carcasses, so fish and things like that. Short-necked turtles are opportunistic omnivores, so they eat aquatic vegetation, sort of algae and water plants. Windfall fruits, so stuff that drops into the water from nearby plants. Driftwood, insects, fish, animal carcasses. So they'll basically eat anything, but quite often it's just algae. They are very good at cleaning up the rivers, eating any and all dead animals that are in the water. There's been some research done recently, sort of looking at turtles and the role they can play in cleaning up if the carp herpes virus ever gets released. And they have a significant impact. They can, one turtle will destroy consume a carp carcass in just a few days. So threats to turtle populations. So nest predation is the biggest threat. So over 95% of the turtle nests are lost to predators, both native and introduced. The foxes by far have the greatest impact on the turtle nests. Like I say, there was a classic example there the other day. 15 out of 16 nests that the guys found, 15 were predated and 1 was intact, and that's just overnight. So the other one probably would have gone. And I know there would have been a whole lot more at Gunbower Island. That was just on the small sandhill. But can't do anything about it. I'm stuck in Melbourne. Habitat loss. So over the years, there's been a lot of drying and clearing of wetlands, and this has had a negative impact on turtle numbers. And invasive species. So in Victoria, we're pretty lucky with invasive species. There's red-eared sliders, and they turn up in our metropolitan parks. And so far, DELP has been pretty good at getting on top of it and catching them all. But up in New South Wales and Queensland, they're out of control in the wild. And they outbreed our native turtles. They can lay 70 eggs in a clutch and may produce more than 1 clutch per season. And they're an aggressive turtle. They'll drive our native turtles out of their habitat. Basically, red-eared sliders are like the rabbits of the turtle world. They're pretty nasty. And I dread the thought of them getting into somewhere like the Gunbower area. There'd just be nowhere you could, no way you could get on top of them if they got established. But like I say, in Victoria, we're pretty lucky. It's just, they just turn up in the parks, usually just one turtle when somebody's had an illegal pet and let it go. But foxes raid the turtle nests by eating the eggs. And like I say, this happens to over 90% of turtle eggs. So this was one we found. We were at this site the day before looking for nests. Either we didn't find it or the turtle laid overnight. The next day we found egg. This is first thing in the morning. There's still a bit of the egg white there, and that's a fox scat underneath it. And this is what you find. The hole dug open, the eggs scattered around. Those crusty bits there would be the remains of the plug. The foxes just dug in, eaten the eggs. Occasionally we find nests that have got a couple of good eggs in them. They get left for some reason. The animals don't get them all. And actually the very first nest we ever protected was one where we found a couple of eggs like this. We weren't sure whether it would work. We refilled it, protected it, and when we went back a year later, there was a broadshell turtle. The hatchlings had hatched and got out of the nest. So we know it works, and since then we've had many other nests we've done that too. I think the record, yeah, we could see eggs in the bottom, so we didn't disturb them. We just filled the nest in and protected it. And when we came back and they'd gone, we counted I think seven or eight hatched eggs. Okay, now before we have questions, I shall go to another thing. Hang on, we've got to get rid of this pointer. No, that's not right. Okay, so you should be seeing this screen, I think, I hope.
Yep, that looks good.
So, okay, that's good, thank you. Yeah, TurtleSat is a website and it's a phone app where you can record any turtle sightings you see. So you could use that anywhere in Australia. And we'll zoom in. So you can see there's quite a good number around Adelaide, good numbers around Melbourne. That's Gunbower. I'd like to say that's my work there. Up around Sydney's pretty good as well, and Albury Wodonga, there's lots going in there. But we'll zoom in on Darebin Parklands if I can find it. There we are. So Darebin Parklands, I'm assuming most of you guys will be fairly familiar with it. Now, I'm never quite sure why, but it doesn't always show all the records that are available. But, these are records. So these green dots are turtle sightings. So they're eastern longnecks. This one here with a cross on it is a dead eastern longneck for some reason. Turtles die. Quite often they're killed by foxes. These brownish goldy coloured dots are nests. So these are two predated nests. That one there hasn't got a P on it, so it's a good nest. So it would have been protected. And there are a lot more nests up along this ridge line here. I think it's there. Oh no, it's here. There's a lot of nests. And in a few other areas. There's another predated nest. So I'll just run through adding a sighting. So I won't finish it, but just run through the process. So say we were out for our evening stroll today and spotted a turtle swimming around in this pond. You just click. Yeah, you're probably up on the bridge here, so it's more than likely it was down this end. You can put it there as accurately as you can. It'll automatically put a time in, or you can change it to whatever you like. It puts the GPS coordinates. Now, I know there are eastern longnecks and Murray River turtles there, so we'll click on the longneck turtle, and then it gives you a selection of broadshell or eastern longneck. So if you know it's an eastern longneck, you can go eastern longneck. If you don't know what type of turtle it was, it's unknown. It's like, actually, you can do that here too. If you don't know if it's a short or long neck, you can click unknown. But I'm pretty confident it'd be an eastern longneck. You only saw one. It was an adult. It was a live turtle. Probably don't know what sex it is. It wasn't nesting. It was just having a swim. We can add a bit of further information. It was in a wetland. It was swimming in the water. And you can put whatever notes in there you like. Yeah, anything that you notice that you think scientists may be interested in. And then you can either display the record to all users or restrict the record to people in your group. So you can, basically it's a privacy setting, and you can set up a group. So say there was a whole lot of people got to organised at Darebin to monitor the turtles there. They could set up a group, Darebin Parklands Turtle Watch or something, and all join that group, and anybody in that group could see records that somebody else in that group had put in, but it restricted it. So that's something I would recommend for turtle nests in urban areas, because you don't want to be telling people where the turtle nests are. Unfortunately, there are unscrupulous people that come out and try and take the eggs. But then you just click submit and it goes in. And the process is basically the same for on the phone app. I find it a little bit easier to do it on the computer. Now, the nest is basically the same. So if you want to add a nest, yeah, you say you saw a turtle digging a nest here somewhere, you record the location, the number of nests seen, you're just recording one. Now, this bit, distance travelled, it was put in, so assuming you were going for you would say, well, what we could do is to demonstrate it. You could say you were going for a walk and you came in the gate here at the Darebin Parklands. So distance travelled, I don't know how long a walk that would be. Let's say a kilometre or 1,000 metres. Direction of travel. So if you walk around in a big circle, say around there, you walk in all directions. So you can go north, south, east, and west. And just as an example, you can say it was predated. You saw I don't know, five predated nests, and they were all the same, completely damaged, and all eggs destroyed. You did that walk the day before, and there weren't any raided nests there, so they were recent. The evidence, you can see scratching, and the nest cavity is not intact. So basically, there's a hole in the ground where the eggs scattered around. So you can put scattered eggs in your notes. Oops. Further information. The soil, I think the soil there is all pretty much, I don't know, we'll say brown soil, I'm not quite sure. This, if we walked around there, that's fairly flat, but there's slopes going down to the things. We'll put it medium because there was a bit of slope. It was the habitat, they were all in the grass, so it was grassy. What I do if I'm recording a turtle nest, when I record it, I simply look up, and if I can see trees, there's some tree cover. If I look up and I see no trees, there's no tree cover. And if I can't see the sky, there's lots of tree cover. But it's not desperately important to get things 100% consistent. But yeah, just whatever you think. The people who look at these records know that they're put in by individuals, and that everybody has a different perception of what a lot or a little is. So we'll put some tree cover because I'm pretty sure there's, we'll go back to this. Yeah, so there's tree cover here. So if there was any nests in this area, there'd be some. If it's over here, there'd be none. So we'll put some tree cover, and then you can make whatever notes there. You can say, you know, walk the Darabin Creek Trail and saw 5 rated nests. That's to do a lot of nests. Anyway, I'm just getting over involved in this. So again, we go cancel, and yeah, leave it at that. So we'll go back to from current slide. Back to the questions. So if anybody's got any.
That was so fantastic, Graham. Thank you so much.
I only just 10 minutes over. That's not too bad for me.
No, you've done well. We've got till 8:30, so
all right.
Very much in time. Yeah, I laughed, and the whole way through that was just wonderful. I learned a lot, so thank you so much.
No problem.
I wonder if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask Graham. I know I've certainly got some, but oh, here we go. They're coming in. Let me have a quick read. So John's got a question. They say, in an urban area, how far would you expect turtles to travel over land to nest?
Look, turtles are funny. They're not the smartest tools in the shed. They might have lasted 250 million years, but they don't really they don't coexist with modern infrastructure very well. So you'd like to think that, you know, if they're in a suburban park, they would stay within that area and just nest close to the water. Say around Melbourne, you know, that's what normally happens. But I've been called out to people's houses where I have no idea where the turtle came from or where it went. But they've had nests dug in the middle of their back garden. An eastern longneck, they are known to travel up to like 500 metres from the water to the nest, but they'll nest within inches of the water. It's highly variable. The broadshell turtles, they nest, and usually I'd say within 50 metres of the water, but you know, 200-300 metres is not uncommon. And the Murray River turtles, they seem to like to stay as close to the water as possible. They just come out, find somewhere as soon as, like I say, as soon as they can see the sky. It seems to be a common thing with them and nest then. Yeah, the easiest way to find their nests, if you're looking at a site, is to find them. Yeah, is to know when they nest, and it's to either find the turtles nesting and observe it, and yeah, to keep a record of where they nest. The easiest thing to do is to do it in TurtleSat, where you can draw a map, and then over time you'll get a picture of where the turtles are nesting in that particular area. Because there are sites, like there's one site we go to, and it's got a bank along the side of the lagoon, and it's pretty much all east facing. It all looks the same to me, but there's one patch a couple of 100 metres long where all the Murray River turtles nest. The next couple of 100 metres, like I say, look exactly the same, and you don't get any nests there. I don't know why they don't nest in that patch, but I know to go and look in the first bit first, because that's where they do nest. So yeah, without knowing sort of the reason for John's question, specifically, yeah, if you're looking at an area to try and work out what the turtles are doing, you wait till they're nesting, and sadly, the easiest way to find the nests is to find ones that the foxes have dug up. That when we started doing our nest protection work, we worked out when we should be up at Gunbower, and it was going to be easy. We'd turn up, the turtles would nest, we'd protect their nests, and that'd be sweet. Well, we turned up, and we spent 2 years recording nests that had been dug up by foxes before we got our first turtle nest. We've learned a lot since then, and fortunately we've been able to pass that on to other people and made their lives a bit easier by them avoiding the mistakes that we've made. But yeah, it's just observation. So yeah, it's just a matter of looking and working out what the turtles are doing in any particular area. But what I can say is most places that have got water will have turtles if the water's at least semi-permanent. The eastern longnecks, they're highly mobile and they'll move between wetlands. So that's one thing I don't cover in this, is the behaviour of the turtles. The broadshell turtles tend to stay in permanent water, and just that's their habitat. They'll move a lot through an environment that the males particularly, because they sort of are cruising looking for the girls, but the girls tend to stay within a fairly compact area. Murray River turtles, pretty similar. They'll stay in one wetland and won't move too much. Eastern longnecks, the reason most people know eastern longnecks is because they move between wetlands all the time. That's why we see them on the road all the time. Broadshell turtles, about the only time they come out of the water is to nest. Murray River turtles, they're out of the water a lot basking. You'll most likely see Murray River turtles basking on logs, but they don't really come out onto the land that much. Sorry, next question before I spend another hour talking.
Thank you so much. That was great information and good motivation for us to get out there and do some citizen science ourselves and follow where these nests are. Emma has their hand up if Emma wants to unmute and ask a question.
Hello, Graham.
G'day.
I have a general question. What is a turtle fact that you get excited about telling people?
A turtle, sorry?
A turtle fact.
A fact?
Yes.
That I get excited about. I always like it when there's a lot of kids, because they ask the craziest questions and they always surprise you. But the turtle, I think the one that usually gets the biggest laugh is there's a lot of turtles up in Northern Australia that can breathe through their bum. So, so that worked. You laughed. Yeah. So there's quite a few species up there. The Fitzroy River turtle, the Mary River turtle. I've drawn a blank, but there's quite a few species that can breathe through their bum. But the Fitzroy River turtles are the best at it, and they draw water into their bum, and they can get enough oxygen out of it to survive underwater all the time without ever having to surface to breathe. They can surface and breathe, that's fine, but they don't have to. But the fact that there's a lot of species that do that up there is important to know for people that build dams, because when you build a dam, the water is slowed and the oxygen levels drop, so that a lot of the oxygen gets put into the water in the riffle zones where it's bouncing over rocks and things, and that's highly oxygenated water, and that's what these turtles prefer, and that's what's natural for them. Now, if the oxygen levels are lower, the turtles will survive okay. They'll just come up to the surface and breathe. But if you're a baby turtle and your prime method of hiding from birds that might eat you is to stay down the bottom of the river, and suddenly you've got to come up to surface to take a breath, that exposes you to the birds when you get to the top, and the big fish as you're swimming up there, so that'll eat you as well. So that's one of my favourite facts, is the bum breathing turtles. And usually the kids will know about it because it's such a bizarre thing. But they just have a structure in the cloaca, which is like a fish's gills, and it can draw the oxygen out of the water. All turtles can do it to some degree, like our eastern longnecks. The turtles, they overwinter, they bermate, and which is like hibernation. But a lot of the turtles can do it in the water, and they do that by slowing their heartbeat and respiration down to, I think it's about 2 beats a minute. And at that low level, they can draw enough oxygen through their skin that they can stay underwater for months at a time. So they're quite amazing animals, and the more you learn about them, the more you realise you don't know. Anyway, next question. I hope that helped.
That is incredible. Actually, a friend of mine that has a 2-year-old asked that question first when they found out about this. So I'm glad to be able to share that information with them. The facts. We've got about 8 questions in about 10 minutes.
I'll try and be quicker with the answers.
I could listen to hear you talk about turtles all night. Michael says, I'm of the understanding that there are no turtle species that occurred naturally in the Yarra River catchment, and that even snake-neck turtles have been introduced or extended their range due to human intervention. Do you know if that is the case? And also, what impacts would turtles have on that system?
Yes, I believe it's true. To the Yarras Valley and the Maribyrnong. Definitely, there's the Murray River turtles are definitely introduced. They should only be on the other side of the Great Divide. The natural range of the eastern longnecks is in the Murray-Darling, so that's to the Great Divide. They come up from Mount Gambier, sort of along the coast towards Geelong. I'm not sure the extent of their range that way. And there's also a separate group that come down the east coast from New South Wales down through Gippsland. If you could see a Gippsland turtle, looks quite different to a Murray River turtle, to an eastern longneck from the Murray looks quite different to one from Gippsland. The Gippsland ones are smaller, generally darker in colour. The shells are a different shape. They're still the same turtle, but they've got a different. They look different. You can just generally go, oh, once you've looked at a lot of turtles, you go, oh, that's from the Murray or that's from Gippsland. I don't. I can't say I understand why there wouldn't be turtles in the Yarra Valley. Like from Gippsland, there was an awful lot of swamps and things that moved right up, sort of almost to Pakenham. The eastern longnecks are highly mobile turtles themselves. Yeah, how far their natural range extended, I just don't know. I believe there's no Indigenous art from the Wiradjuri people that depicts turtles, which if they were here naturally, that's what you'd expect to see. But on the other hand, turtles are a really good little lunch packet. So they're good eating, apparently. I don't know that I'd like to eat an eastern longneck. So I can't understand why the Indigenous people wouldn't have picked them up and carried them and traded them into the Melbourne region. So it confuses me that they're not here, but that's what the scientists tell me. It's quite a hotly debated subject, and I'm hoping that there may be some DNA work done in the near future to try and work out sort of where the natural range is. I have a theory of my own, which I don't know whether anybody else accepts, but my feeling is that as the farming progressed throughout the state, the farm dams and things like that would have provided habitat that the turtles could have perhaps hopped, if you like, through this newly created environments as the farmlands was open up in the early centuries. But turtles were quite common 100 plus years ago around Melbourne, and that they've been in this environment for a long time. If you go into Trove, the newspaper records website, and put in turtle or tortoise, and because they are called both, you can find news articles and things going back quite a long way of people seeing them in the wild. But there can't have been much news going around at the times that the turtles get a mention. You'll see somebody spotted a turtle swimming in the Yarra or something quite early in the piece. You've got to wade through all the shipping. There's a lot of ships that turn turtle that come up in those searches, and a lot of ships that bring in sea turtles with them that were brought in for food. A ship would turn up and they'd have 3 turtles on them, and there'd be a big rush down to the docks to buy the turtles for the restaurants around Melbourne back in the early days. But what impact they'd have on the environment, look, I guess we'd probably never really know. Obviously, they're going to eat tadpoles, so they'd have an impact on the frog populations. They'd eat a lot of water bugs. So they're going to be it's going to be an additional predator, and maybe it would have impacted on the predators that were already eating that prey. So it may have had an impact on fish stocks, and the bird life wouldn't have had quite as much to eat. I doubt that it would have had a catastrophic impact. I think it probably would have been fairly minor, but who knows? Cane toads were supposed to be good too. So yeah, can't say.
Very good point. That's great. Thanks, Graham. And I think we'll just go to one more question, and then for anyone else that we didn't get to round 2, we can always email you, perhaps, Graham. So had a couple questions around protecting nests.
Yep.
So what do you use? Is it
Okay.
chicken mesh?
Yep.
And just further on that, what is the best nest protection on loamy, sandy soil where it's difficult to fence off and there is cattle grazing?
Yep. Okay, so what we use, we use 2 materials basically. Either I'm assuming this is somebody in Victoria or not too far into the bush. We use 500 mil squares of either wire or plastic trellis. So the preferred thing is wire, like chicken wire, but any wire, and depending on the species, you depends on the size hole that you can have. So broadshell turtles, obviously you need a bigger hole because the hatchlings are bigger. So we use 50 mil square trellis, plastic trellis that you can buy at Bunnings for broadshell turtles, or the larger chicken wire. The chicken wire itself, because the holes aren't square, the hole itself is actually physically bigger. So what we're tending to do now is to overlap it a bit so that we basically make 2 layers, making slightly smaller holes. And we do use 2 layers of plastic mesh wherever we use it. Now, we use the plastic out in farmers' paddocks and things like that, where there's a chance that the farm machinery could disturb it, because the farmers are good enough to let us onto their property. They're very welcoming. So we don't want to do anything that's going to impact on their farming, their equipment, because if we destroy a expensive machine, they might tell us to bugger off. So yeah, so if we're doing it in somewhere where there might be farm equipment being used, we use the plastic. Everywhere else, we'll use the mesh, but any mesh will do. And as far as securing it, well, in most places we just use we actually use a U-shaped peg that you can get at Bunnings, again, that's for pegging down artificial grass. You can buy them in packets of 100 and they go a long way, and they're pretty good. Unless if the soil's really hard, they bend. And if the soil's really soft, which was getting back to the question, they won't hold in the ground. So in really hard soil, we use tent pegs, which unfortunately are a lot more expensive. And in really loamy soil, we use sand pegs. So they're the yellow plastic pegs that you buy at a camping store. And we have bought them from in sort of not huge quantities, but in larger quantities from somewhere in China on eBay. You just do a search on tent pegs, and they work quite well in the more loose soil. And you can get, if the soil is really, really loose, you can get quite long ones. But they don't tend to be very good as they don't tend to have a long life. If the soils are tall, hard, they seem to break quite easily. But that's, if you need to use them, that's what we use. So yeah, the process basically is you get the mesh, you put it flat on the ground, and you peg. We put 8 pegs around it. We used to only put 4, but we decided that it was so hard to find the nests that what's 4 extra pegs, and it might just make the difference between the nest being taken and not. And you get, we always go back to the nests and recover all the equipment and reuse it again. So we're not wasting anything.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Graham. That was awesome and very detailed.
Yeah. In the areas where there's wild pigs, you've got to get really serious. Sorry, Ash. You've got to get really serious, and the guys that do nests and that sort of nest protection in that area, they use metal cages that are made out of the aluminium that you use on fly screen doors, that sort of rugged stuff, or I think the sea turtle people, they actually use reinforced, like concrete reinforcing mesh, that's quite heavy, because pigs are absolute monsters, and they use, I think, a metre square, so it's like 4 times the area they cover to stop the pigs getting in. But we find 500 mil will generally stop it. The nests that we've lost, the foxes, in the last couple of years have started going through the mesh in the middle. So for about 8 years we didn't lose a nest, and in the last couple of years we lost quite a lot, which was very very frustrating. That's when we went to steal. Anyway, sorry, next.
That's great. Thanks very much, Graham. We're pretty much out of time now, so I wanted to invite you to bring the turtles on screen if you would like. If anyone had a few more minutes to stick around and say hello, because they're very, very cute.
Okay, so I shall, what do? I end the slideshow. I turn this. Oh no, I don't do that. Where's my Zoom?
I can stop your sharing if you like.
Haven't I stopped that? Oh, no, I haven't stopped share. There we go. That's better.
I'm really looking forward to this, everybody. Had a preview.
Bringing the babies out for us all to have a look at. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're babies, but they're very small. His babies.
Just checking out who's here.
How you going, Graham? We lost you. Not sure what's happened to Graham. Jen, yes, absolutely, we're recording. So once this is over, probably tomorrow, I'll upload it to YouTube, and I'll put a link to the presentation on our YouTube channel, and I'll link it to Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you can go, or you could just go on YouTube, and I'll put, Friends of Darebin Creek Turtles Australia, something. So you can search it there. Great. Thanks, everyone. What do we think? I'm not sure. If anyone needs to go, please go, but you'll be able to check back in with the turtles on the recording. So thanks so much for being with us. Goodbye. Bye.
Very
Here we
interesting
go, he's
slides
back.
that are happening there, Emma, and your friend. Third word sounds like
Yeah. Graham, you're back. Yay. All right, I'll spotlight this.
oh my god.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. Okay, now, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Good.
yeah.
Okay, so I hope everybody hasn't fallen off. I've got a few hungry turtles here. I didn't feed them because I knew they'd perform if I stood around. So that big one there, that's a broadshell turtle. That's a female by the look of it, broadshell. That's a eastern longneck turtle we've got there. And this broadshell down here is doing what they love to do, which is it just sits down underneath that log, spends most of its time down there waiting for something to swim past and get eaten. The eastern longnecks, they're clowns. They're always chasing around looking for something to do.
What will you feed them, Graham?
Sorry?
What will you feed them tonight?
Tonight they'll get nothing, but tomorrow I'll go down to the to Coles and get some rainbow trout and chop that up and toss it in, and they will go crazy for it.
Mm.
That's a small Murray River turtle there. That's a slightly larger one there. You can see that one shedding. The outer layers of its shell are coming away, but gets down again. Again, that's the broadshell turtle. There's the other broadshell. But they get rainbow trout. If I'm looking to give them a lot of food, sort of to bulk them up a bit, I go and buy kangaroo mince that's done for dog food, and it's got very little fat in it, and so it's not too bad for the turtles. Not good for the kangaroos, but I figure that they're already dead. So that's a Murray River turtle. There's another eastern longneck. You can see the difference in the sort of the shape of the head. Yeah. The eastern longnecks eat much smaller prey. Like they eat the microinvertebrates, whereas the broadshell turtles, they got a massive mouth, and they can eat a full size. These guys can eat full size yabbies, claws and all. Which if I'm had the opportunity to catch any yabbies, that's what they get. They'll get shrimp and things like that as well. I quite often, if there's a special on prawns at Coles, I'll buy them a kilo of prawns, and they'll get those. But I can't stand them.
Oh,
They
well,
are
for
so
the turtles. Are they super active now because you've turned the light on?
Yeah, the light's been on, and they and because I'm standing close to the tank. When I was sitting in the other room, I'd glance, and they're a bit active because like I say, I haven't fed them. Two reasons: one, because I knew they'd be a bit more active for everybody, but two, they're a dirty animal, and the water could have got quite fouled. And there's a lot of turtles in this tank, so there's a lot of turtle poo. Mm. That turtle over the back there, that's a sawshell turtle. That in the screen, which is there are actually some sawshells in the Murray-Darling Basin, but right up the very top in Queensland.
Mm. Fantastic.
They are.
Are there any other questions that people have got?
We've got a few questions in the chat, but we might wrap it up there
Yeah.
just for time's sake.
Yeah.
I know it's getting late, but I might get some questions to you, Graham, and then we can send them out after the presentation, if that's okay.
Yeah, not a problem.
Mm.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Graham. I had such a good time
Yeah.
watching this presentation, and there's been lots of thanks in the chat, lots of awes when the turtles came out,
Oh.
lots of love. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Graham.
Before we go, I'll up the ore rate if I can. I'll try and find. I've got a baby turtle here somewhere. I've got 4, but I just need to find one.
Margaret, you were right.
The
I
baby.
see one.
Show us
No.
the babies.
Okay. So this is a baby sawshell turtle. I'll just get a hold of it properly.
Oh,
Hang on, I've got to get some light in here. Get it in some light. Hang on, I'll go into the other room.
oh, God.
it's not showing up very. Oh, it's not too bad. Actually, I can see
Well,
on the other screen.
We get a sense of it by looking at your thumb and your finger and how tiny it is.
Yeah, and this one's reasonably old. Not ancient, but it's I don't know, it'd be 6 months, maybe 12.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
its mum is in a tank downstairs, and she'd be 45 years old now. She lays about 20 eggs every year, and yeah, we get these beautiful little baby turtles out of them.
Mm.
Her boyfriend was about the same age, and we used to only get a very low number of eggs would hatch, but he sadly I lost him, and she's got a new boyfriend now, and suddenly her success rate has gone through the roof. Yeah, the other guy obviously wasn't performing quite as well as he should have been. Yeah, that's right.
That was, yeah, you're right. That was definitely up the awe factor. That's awesome. All right, well, let's wrap it up there, Graham. Thank you so much again.
Yes, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Lots of awes in the chat, lots of love.
Okay.